Rashad Lewis rifles this one, and there's the big tight end.
Detmer throws it wide open to make the catch is the rookie Chad Lewis.
Pete's back. He fires. Caught for a touchdown by Chad Lewis.
Lewis. High hurdles at the 40. You gotta be kidding. Inside the 20, they can throw, and BYU does. Diving catch, and it's an opening touchdown for the Cougars.
Sarkisian wide open. Found Lewis, his tight end, and he waits for his blocker, and down the sideline he goes.
Walsh dancing around, throws in the middle of the field, completes it to his tight end. And he high jumps over a would-be tackler.
Lofts for the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown.
He's going to throw for it. Nice throw for it. It's caught. It'll be a score.
McNabb back in the end zone. Lewis, touchdown.
As a quarterback, you have to have something or someone that you can rely on. I say something sometimes because it could be a play, it could be a formation, it could be a time in the game situation, or a player that you can always say, hey, you know what, he's always open. Things break down, I know where I'm going with the football. A lot of times with quarterbacks, you'll see a receiver who, you know, is the #1 receiver for in the offense. It could be a running back. It could be a tackle, a guard, or where you decide maybe you want to run the football. But for me in our passing game, it was Chad.
I tell people this, which is kind of funny because everybody knew Chad was my favorite, and we got away with it. And that was because of him.
I always tell Chad that Chad is one of the, best human beings I know. And that's how I introduce him, as one of the best human beings I know.
One word to describe Chad: great. Great man, great husband, great father, great teammate, great leader. Great.
I would say abundant.
Warrior. He's a warrior.
Friend.
Powerful. Incredible. Positive.
Positive. Awesome.
Awesome.
Effervescent.
Sweet. He always says that. He always says sweet.
Enthusiastic.
Great integrity.
I would say authentic.
Authentic.
Inspirational.
Young. He's old, but he acts like he's young.
I call him valuably voluble.
Amazing.
You'd probably say honest.
Tall.
Meekness.
Nice.
Energetic.
Fun.
I would say energy. He brings a really good energy to any situation and any people he's with, and I've always loved that.
We got down to inside the 5-yard line, and we did a play action pass. We'd run a similar play earlier in the game, which resulted in a touchdown. Donovan threw me a pass, and I caught it and barely kept my feet in bounds. The play was challenged. The challenge stood. It was a touchdown.
After reviewing the play stands as called. Touchdown.
So at the end of the game, same thing. Play action pass from Donovan. He threw me a ball. The ball came to my back shoulder. I turned, something I've done 1,000,000 times. And as I turned to catch the ball, my left foot popped and I fell to the ground, and I wasn't quite sure what had happened with my foot. I just felt this massive release of energy. I knew that something crazy happened. I knew I wasn't going to be playing in the Super Bowl.
If there's one play for which Chad is remembered, it happened right here at Lincoln Financial Field in this end zone in the 2004 NFC Championship game against the Atlanta Falcons. Here, Chad broke his foot on the play, but caught the game-winning catch that sent the Eagles to their first Super Bowl since 1980.
Yeah, in our NFC Championship game, he caught a corner route. Actually, it was his last play. He actually broke his foot on that play, but it was the touchdown that sealed the victory for us to go play New England in the Super Bowl.
I remember when he hurt his foot in a playoff game, and I was watching, and I remember just I felt like an older brother or a parent almost, I remember the pain of that.
So we're playing the championship game in Philadelphia there, and against Atlanta, and he makes what ends up being the winning touchdown catch, And he just sits on his rear end. He's holding the ball up, bouncing on his rear end. I'm going, come on, get up and celebrate. Come on. Ended up that he broke his foot. And he knew it. But it didn't slow him down a bit.
I mean, he's sitting there on the ground and he's dancing and he's just like getting excited. And I'm wondering, okay, you've been sitting down on the ground for a while. Like, what's going on? Then he got helped up, came to the sideline. They're checking him out. And I'm looking down the bench like, what's wrong with Chad? And he's like, yeah, man, great job. I broke my foot. It's like, what? What'd you say? I'm like, you'll be ready to go in 2 weeks? Like, what does that mean? He's like, man, I'm out. But hey, we finally got over the hump. And I'm like, why are you so excited? You got hurt. But that's just how Chad was. He was just, the team success was something that brought excitement more to Chad than individual accolades. And it says a lot about a player, especially in today's age, where people just stat watch. It's all about me, instead of what about the team success and the things that we can do together.
Chad Lewis grew up in Orem, Utah, and started playing football at a young age.
I fell in love with football probably when I was born. I think with 3 older brothers, there was always footballs in the house. I can't remember ever a time not loving football.
Most of the games happened in the backyard of the Lewis's home, with no referees and, well, no rules.
Yeah, I can't remember finishing any game without a fight, so that was a lot of fighting, a lot of crying, a lot of getting beat up, slammed on the ground, but that's where I learned all my moves.
Growing up, I don't know if any of them were a peacemaker.
We wrestled, fought. We kind of had a rule that we wouldn't punch each other in the face unless it was really, really bad. And so it rarely got into that activity, but we wrestled all the time. And my parents, I can't believe that they handled it all.
Chad went on to set records as a star on the Orem Tigers football team. After high school, the University of Utah offered Chad a spot on the team, but he decided to serve a 2-year mission for the LDS Church first. The church sent him to the Taiwan Taichung mission.
Oh man, I cried myself to sleep for a couple weeks. Culture shock was real. I was wondering if I would ever see my family ever again. 2 years in that first city of Yuanlin seemed like there's no chance 2 years would ever pass. And the language was so difficult, I didn't know that I would ever be able to understand people.
He wasn't the best at learning the language, but he was very bright and he was very diligent.
His missionary service led Elder Lewis to decide he didn't want to play football or go to the University of Utah, so after his mission, he tried to find a spot on the track and field team at Brigham Young University, the church-owned school next door to where he grew up.
Mark Robinson was the track coach that let me come walk on, and he was very cool. He was patient with me because I was a low jumper. I wasn't breaking any records. I thought, well, maybe this will be a way for me to earn a scholarship of some kind, and it wasn't. Thank heavens that my friends and mission companion and family, everyone said, hey, go for football, because that was where my skill set was. I was built to play football.
After some encouragement from friends, Chad entered BYU football as a walk-on with no scholarship and no sure position on the team.
Prayed about it for about a week or two, like my life depended on it, and there's no question, 100% certainty that I got an answer to play football.
He was committed. I knew he would sacrifice anything because he was a walk-on. He didn't have a scholarship. So, you know, being a walk-on and coming on and earning a scholarship, you know, that is a great accomplishment in itself.
Walking on a football team is not easy. The players compete with each other for scholarships, positions, and playing time. But safety Jack DeMooney found an immediate bond with Chad Lewis.
We were practicing offense versus defense, just receivers versus defensive backs and linebackers. And at the corner of my eyes, I see this guy come in. Red hair, a lot of red hair, you know, big old glasses, this big. I'm not even lying, this big right here. Walks into the facility with the biggest smile and asks, you know, and says, "What's up, everybody?" Just like how he did now, full of energy. And he will tell you that I was his first friend.
Lewis saw minimal playing time his freshman year, but had a standout moment at the Rose Bowl Stadium against UCLA.
We were kind of on the backup team, as you could say, and
we were getting beat pretty bad at UCLA, but here we were playing in the Rose Bowl, you know, the actual, not the game, the Rose Bowl, but the stadium, the Rose Bowl. And we were down by, man, you'd have to look up the score, but it was several touchdowns, and they ended up saying, okay, let's put the second team guys in there. And so I got in there, and I was excited to be in there, because here we are playing the Rose Bowl. So I got excited. Chad's in the huddle, and my other buddy Bryce Doman and a couple other guys that were good friends of mine were like, we're going to go down and score right here. This is our opportunity. We're going to go down and we're going to score. And so sure enough, I got a couple passes. We went down pretty quickly down to about the 1 yard line, and we had this special play that we put in. I saw that there was man-to-man coverage out there, so basically it was real easy. I just took the snap and threw it up. Chad went up and caught it, and he was on his back, and he fell into the end zone. And I was so excited. I ran up to him and tackled him. He was on the ground kind of already, but I went and jumped on him in the end zone and yelled it in his face mask. And basically, we were just yelling there. And then all of a sudden, we heard one of the UCLA band members were right behind the end zone right there, and they're like, what's the deal? Look at the scoreboard. And Chad looked at him and goes, I don't care. We just scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. And that was just the best. It was awesome. And that's just perfect Chad right there.
During his freshman year, Chad met an All-American BYU volleyball player named Michelle Fellows.
We first met in the training room at BYU, and so I was icing my knees, and he was in the whirlpool with another football player. Chad actually accused me of flirting with this other guy, and I wasn't really the flirtatious type. So I was like, no, but you're kind of cute. I kept hearing from people, Chad Lewis wants to ask you out. Would you go out with him? Are you dating anyone? So after hearing that a handful of times, he finally asked me out.
Our training room was the same at that time at BYU, so we saw each other all the time. Got to be friends. And then I started thinking, wow, she's really beautiful. I want to ask her out on a date. Let's get this going. So then I had all my friends, ask, if Chad asked you on a date, would you go with him? And she's like, yeah. What's his problem? Tell him to come ask me. So I finally asked her on a date, and we went out, and that was really fun.
Between the demands of school, homework, and football and volleyball practice, Chad and Michelle found ways to spend time together.
So James and Chad would sit up in the blue chairs and watch us practice, and Gail would say, hey, they're here. So we had a lot of fun with that, because we would have a little extra motivation with them in the stands.
At the end of the football season, Chad and Michelle started a new season, getting married in the LDS Temple in Las Vegas. With a wife and an official football scholarship, Chad moved his focus to the field, and he became the starting tight end on BYU's powerful offense.
I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force right now, and I've worked for many, many stars, meaning many generals, and he is one of the best leaders I've ever come across in my life. Leader from the get-go, just very positive, phenomenal athlete, but that pales into comparison what type of person he is.
He's always been outgoing and very warm and friendly, and just seems like the type of guy you need on a team.
Chad's background as a high jumper on the track team came in handy, as he blocked 4 field goals and 1 PAT during his time at BYU.
Here's the block, and it looks like it's right in the middle. And Chad Lewis gets up, and he's got that great vertical jump.
He would just surprise us. He'd dive, he'd make one-handed catches, he'd block about 4 or 5 field goals, jump over crazy.
He also used his jumping skills when he ran with the ball, jumping over players like they were hurdles on the track.
I would say 2 jumps stick out to me. Jumping, the first time I jumped over someone playing UTEP my freshman year, down the left sideline, it was so fun to jump over someone. And I'd never done it in high school, never even came close. And to do it in a college game, it was just, I can't even describe how fun it was for me. I loved it. And then another time my senior year, on the right sideline, I jumped over a guy against Arkansas State at home. and it was a night game, and it was just a lot of fun.
UPI named Lewis as an All-American during his junior year, despite breaking his foot against Hawaii in the 7th game of that season.
Sarkisian wants to throw, dumps it to his tight end. Chad Lewis dances past the 30 to the 34-yard line, and the big fella at 6'6" picks up a first down at Brigham Young.
And it was such a huge blow to us because he was our leader. He may not have been, quote unquote, a captain at that time, but he was always a leader. And when your leader goes down, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, it kind of hits you, right? Because in your mind, he's Superman.
I was leading the country in receptions and yards when I caught the ball, made some nice moves. I was just feeling so good, and some guy tackled me low, and it snapped my ankle. And so I had a hairline crack up my medial malleolus.
The Western Athletic Conference also named Lewis to the All-WAC first team for his first time that season.
If he was depressed, then he did a really good job of hiding it because he just helped the next man up.
Chad's foot healed for his senior year, what some consider the best season ever in BYU football history.
Chad really led the attitude of being unselfish and being happy for your teammates when they have success. And I remember him specifically cheering for Ituamili, who was, a fellow tight end, and just there was not an ounce of selfishness.
With all his honors and a successful senior year, Lewis thought he would easily get drafted into the NFL, but his name never got called.
When the draft came and went, I was not a part of it. It was not fun to see people that I knew and felt like I could compete against at the tight end position and know that they were drafted and I wasn't. My name wasn't called, but my phone rang. My phone rang because teams were calling me saying, if we don't draft you, we want you in camp. So there were 12 to 14 teams that called during the draft to invite me into their camp. So I had a lot of teams, and I had a quick decision to make. Do I go to the Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs or any other place? I had to know who the quarterback was, what the offense was, who the offensive coordinator was, what tight ends they had there. For all those reasons, I went to the Philadelphia Eagles. Ty Detmer was the starting quarterback. John Gruden was the offensive coordinator. And there was a tight end situation that I felt was going to be positive for me, and it was.
So again, he walked on, forced to earn his way onto a team.
Going to the Eagles as an undrafted free agent, I was walking on all over again. I didn't think I'd have to walk on again once I did it, especially once I had success at BYU. And then I realized one of the greatest gifts in my life was to be a walk-on and to understand that life is a series of walking on. And so to make the team as a free agent, it was really hard. It challenged me in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and to make it and to prove that I could do it again as a walk-on, it gave me a deep strength that I used for the rest of my life up until now, that when things get really hard, I know that I can do it.
With hard work, determination, and a good attitude, Lewis made the team. He had 12 catches for 94 yards his rookie year, and 4 of those catches were for touchdowns. He played in all 16 games for the Eagles that season.
I think they were very, very much enthralled with him because he was a certain personality that was very appealing to the crowd.
Leo Carlin ran the ticket office for the Eagles for 55 years. He met hundreds of players during that time, but one stands out in his mind, a big red-headed rookie from Utah who for some reason wanted his shirt.
This one particular day at the ticket office, the players were lined up in the sort of the lobby of the ticket office, and they were getting their tickets, which they were allotted one player at a time. At the back of the line was this voice that I had never heard before, and he said, "Hey, buddy, hey, mister, I like your shirt." I said, "Thank you." He said, "Can I have it?" I said, "No, you can't have it." He said, "Well, suppose I score a touchdown on Sunday." I said, "Forget it, buddy, okay?" I didn't know who he was. He said, "Wait a minute. Suppose I score the winning touchdown on Sunday. Will you give it to me?" I said, "You got it, kid." Sunday came, okay? Chad got in the game for one play. Rodney Peete fades back, throws the ball. There's Chad in the end zone, scoring the winning touchdown. The press came and interviewed him and said, "What were you thinking scoring the winning touchdown?" I was thinking about getting that guy's shirt in the ticket office upstairs. He came in to get the shirt. And I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll give you the shirt, but I'm going to give it to you in your locker." Because I knew all the press would be around the locker. So they came all around his locker, and I came right through the whole press and handed him the shirt.
Lewis and his shirt came back to the Eagles for his second year, but in the second game of the 1998 season, he broke his ankle in a game against the Atlanta Falcons. The next day, the Eagles cut him from the team. Once cleared by the doctors, Lewis joined the St. Louis Rams.
If you remember, he was walk-on in college and an NFL free agent. And in my coaching career, I had so much luck with that kind of kid. You know, the Kurt Warners, the London Fletchers, and these kind of guys that made me look a lot smarter than I really was because we gave kids opportunities. And Chad fit right into that category.
Lewis found himself on the Rams practice squad, along with an unproven backup quarterback named Kurt Warner.
I tell you what I remember most about my time with Chad was how we tore it up on the scout team. Like, Chad was my go-to guy on the scout team, that he was that athletic tight end before the athletic tight end, the guy that could stand up to run all the routes. And so we had a great rapport, and the two of us would just pick apart our number one defense week in and week out. And I just remember thinking, man, if I could just get on the field with this guy, there is no question that the two of us together would have great success.
Other than practice, Lewis didn't play much for the Rams in the 1998 season, but appeared in 6 games in the 99 season before getting cut from the team.
He really got better, and he knew what he was doing. He was crafty, and I knew he was going to play. And it was a tough cut. It was a tough cut. You know, you cut a lot of guys, but when you cut somebody you know can play, because you don't make the rules, the NFL makes the rules, sets the limits, and you have position limits and everything, not by the NFL, but by your roster and how it's put together. I repeat, that was the toughest NFL cut we made in St. Louis.
But Lewis looked at it as an opportunity instead of a setback and contacted another BYU alum, Steve Young, the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Chad reminded me of Brent Jones, very spatially aware, so that you could find openings where there was very little.
Young thought Lewis could help him win a Super Bowl with the Niners and wanted him on the team.
I was pushing for it, and the Eagles he had to go through the whole league by previous record, and so they start with the worst team first, and you have to clear waivers all the way through. And if he was going to clear it to the 49ers, we were going to take him, because I had talked to Steve Mariucci and it had all worked out, and he just didn't make it. He got to Philadelphia, and that was it.
5 minutes before the deadline, the Eagles stole Lewis back from the 49ers' grasp, because the Eagles had lost more games up to that point in the season and had first rights to him. But Lewis found a different team in Philadelphia when he returned for his second stint, now under the direction of a Mormon head coach named Andy Reid.
And so I went back to the Eagles, and this time Andy Reid is the head coach. And I knew him, I'd interviewed with him at the Combine, I'd done a workout with him at Green Bay, and to know that he wanted me back there, that meant so much to me. And the first thing he said to me was, "Hey, I know you wanted to go finish Steve Young's career with him, but I need you here, and we need to turn this thing around." And I promised him right then, I said, I've been in my playbook, I'll stay in my playbook, I'll be ready to go this Sunday. That Sunday, I scored a touchdown against the Colts, and the next Monday morning, I was made the starting tight end of the Philadelphia Eagles.
So man, this guy will be a fit. He'd be perfect for this West Coast offense. And unfortunately, we didn't get him to Green Bay. I think we actually brought him up there just before I left, and we didn't sign him, thank goodness. And then I left, and I was able to snag him there at Philadelphia.
So Lewis again put on a green jersey.
Yeah, right away I had an idea how to use him. Now, by that time, he had been cut by how many ever teams, one of which was the Eagles. And when he was with the Eagles, all he did was score touchdowns. So we get him back there, and the players all joked.
But one person not joking was the rookie Eagles quarterback, Donovan McNabb.
Chad brought leadership. Chad brought determination. Chad had this smile and just energy about him that kind of lit up a room. And when he was on the football field, it was the same way. Chad can catch a 2-yard pass and get up and get excited like he just caught a 40-yard bomb. It was things like that after our rookie year in '99 that really propelled us into the decade of winning. that we had, because we had guys like Chad who understood the process of we were going to struggle early, but we continued to build a rapport and also build that relationship with each other, that good things could happen.
That was his go-to guy. And every quarterback does need that. It's like Linus with the blanket. You gotta have that guy. And as John Madden would say, you have to have a guy. In life, you have to have a guy. So that was Chad was his guy. And so anytime Donovan was either needed a first down, a big play in a game, whether it's in the red zone or out in the field, you're guaranteed he was going to find Chad.
Donovan McNabb passing on first down. The pass caught by Chad Lewis, and Lewis breaks away into Giant territory.
Chad was our guy that I've relied on. He was my security blanket. If it was a third and medium, if it was a third and short, I knew I had Chad somewhere around that I could be able to dump it to him when we get the first down.
Think of the responsibility that Chad had and how good he was to get labeled that, or to have that responsibility there and trust from his quarterback. That means that you're able to get open every time. That's a mentality of that quarterback. He's saying, hey, Chad, every time, it doesn't matter who you're playing against, you're going to be the guy, and you're going to get open, and I'm going to dot you with it. It doesn't matter if it's a keyhole throw that has that much room, or if you're wide open, it's coming to you, because I know you're going to catch the ball.
And just became just an impact player right away, as a tight end and leader on the football team. Obviously, his faith is second to none, and I think that's a big part of who he is and the type of man that he is, and how he can lead, sort of by example.
Well, he was an outstanding route runner and a very willing blocker. Two attributes that it's a unique combination. But he was a really good route runner. He was like the king of the stick nod, the quick out and up. And he did that extremely well. Very productive for us.
About the time Lewis came back to the Eagles, rookie quarterback Donovan McNabb took over the starting position from veteran quarterback Doug Pederson. McNabb liked having the big, high-jumping tight end in the game. In fact, McNabb's first touchdown for the Eagles came on this throw to Lewis.
My first touchdown was a basic play for us. It was a stick nod play. He got open. I took a shot too. I got hit hard, but I threw it, and I just seen Chad reach up for it, and all I felt like either he was going to catch it or no one, and Chad came down with it, and really that kind of kick-started a lot of things that we wanted to do in our passing game, because you start to see things develop. It was like a flower, when you plant it, you plant the seed. And that was kind of when we all kind of got our feet wet. And things like that touchdown to Chad, you start to see the flower kind of flourish. If we have a few more in each game like this, we can get this thing going in the right direction. And from that point on, I thought offensively, with us being young, from that point on, we started to kind of go upwards in the things that we want to do. I remember the touchdown, and I was thinking, am I going to get the football for this? Like, normally you throw your touchdown, you get your football. And Chad was so excited. He's like running off holding the football. And I'm like looking at the football the whole way, like, are you going to give me the football or what? Like,
here I am at Lincoln Financial Field, home of the Philadelphia Eagles, and where Chad Lewis played 8 of his 9 NFL seasons. He also had one with the Rams, but the majority of his career was here in Philadelphia. Chad was a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Eagles from 2000 to 2002, and he led all NFL tight ends in catches in the year 2000. Chad had a long, productive career here in Philadelphia with the Eagles, as he is remembered for many great catches and plays. Here in Philadelphia, he had his first career touchdown catch, and the pinnacle moment of his career, he caught the game-winning touchdown pass against the Atlanta Falcons in the 2004 NFC Championship game that sent the Eagles to their first Super Bowl since 1980 versus the Raiders. Despite Chad's continual success, the Eagles couldn't make it past the NFC Championship game and achieve their goal of playing in a Super Bowl.
Through his pro years, for the most part, he was always on good teams. So there was always a chance at the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And he went to 3 NFC Championship games before they finally won one the 4th time. So after each of those games, they were devastating. I mean, my heart just ached for Chad because I knew how hard he'd worked. And I think I shed more tears than he did because you just go through so much and to get one game away.
But the Eagles ended the 2004 season 13-3, and after a divisional round win over the Minnesota Vikings, advanced to their 4th straight NFC Championship game. A win over the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship would send the Eagles to the Super Bowl for the first time in 24 years.
McNabb with plenty of time, fires, L.J. Smith inside the 5.
At halftime, the Eagles led 14-10, with one of the Eagles' 2 touchdowns coming on a 3-yard touchdown pass from McNabb to Lewis.
McNabb back in the end zone, Lewis, touchdown.
The Eagles scored 2 field goals in the 3rd quarter, giving them a 20-10 lead heading to the 4th.
McNabb over the middle, guns it, complete, first down. Chad Lewis, who has a touchdown today, and a first down at the Atlanta 45.
With 5 minutes left, McNabb iced the victory with this pass to Chad Lewis in the end zone.
Play action. Lewis, touchdown, and they will celebrate.
Many might see this catch in the end zone as the pinnacle of Chad Lewis's professional football career, but it is what happened after he scored that showed his true greatness. Here in the moment of Chad's greatest triumph, the greatest test of his character was still to come. He could have just limped away, as his team moved on to Super Bowl 39 against the New England Patriots, but not Chad Lewis. Instead, he reached back to a former player and a friend at the tight end position who he felt could replace him.
I met Chad, it was in 2000. I'd been traded to the Eagles.
Jeff Thomason and Lewis started as competitors, both trying to get the starting job as the Eagles tight end.
So I came in there, I saw his energy. We were both fighting for the starting position, and it was my chance to actually get a chance to potentially start in the NFL, so I was pretty excited about that. But then I realized number 1, he's a better tight end than I was. Number 2, he was just a great guy, and you rooted for him a lot. So we actually ended up doing a lot together as far as developing our own skills and becoming better, the 2 of us, as a tight end. So, I just loved having him around. I loved the way his energy is always so positive, and he makes you a better player, makes you a better man, no question.
After 10 years in the NFL and 3 seasons with Chad and the Eagles from 2000 to 2002, Thomason left the Eagles and retired from football. He moved on with his life and took a job in construction, working in New Jersey, but his old buddy Chad Lewis had not forgotten him.
I've been out for 2 years, and I just kept in touch with those guys a lot. I was working with a company called Toll Brothers, just locally in Chesterfield, New Jersey, and I saw Chad get hurt and didn't know the way he celebrated on, sitting down with his hands in the air. Didn't know he was bad, but the next day he had called me in my trailer when I was working in construction and say, "Dude, I'm out. I'm going to talk to Andy, and I'd like to see you come take my spot." I'm like, Chad, that's exactly the kind of thing I expect you to say, because you're the most giving human being I've ever met in my life. But did it come to fruition? It did. And actually, he did call. Andy called me, and then Tom Melvin called me, and I got a chance to go back and play that game that I wish he would have played in. I wish he had a chance to play in that Super Bowl. But he was that whole 2 weeks. His support he gave me and the excitement he felt for me being there was just typical of Chad Lewis and the kind of person he is.
Lewis not only pushed Reid to bring Thomason back, but he came to practice with him every day to teach him the new plays and prepare him for the Super Bowl game that he couldn't play in.
This thing here is the most dangerous piece of equipment in all of Jacksonville. There's T.O.'s signature right there in the front. He just pulled up, and you were singing, what was the song you were singing?
Fly Eagles Fly in Chinese.
Let's hear it real quick.
飞老鹰飞，到那条银丝路，飞老鹰飞。
Wax on, wax off. That's about all the Chinese I know right there.
Chad gets hurt, and I'm going, oh my gosh. I mean, here we are at the end of the year. I've got to get somebody in that can learn the offense like right now. I mean, we have no time. We have 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and we got to go. I mean, this is the biggest game of the year. So I called JT up. I said, is there any way either you or I could talk to your boss and get you a little leave of absence here for a couple weeks, and you come play in the Super Bowl? He goes, are you kidding me? I go, no. And he goes, how did you think of this? I go, well, Chad and I were talking, and we said, hey, let's give him a call. Let's give you a call, and let's see if it rolls. And Chad told me that you'd been still staying in shape, and we'll give it a shot.
Chad was doing everything he could, even though he couldn't play. He was walking around. He was rolling around on one of those little scooter things.
Chad taught us a valuable lesson through this experience. showing us that character is not revealed through triumphs, but how we react to adversity.
And it was so sad for, everybody was sad for Chad, but Chad wasn't sad for himself, which is odd. You know, he was his normal self. You know, was excited for his teammates to go to the Super Bowl. Chad worked with him and helped him, you know, remember the plays and all those things. Chad was his biggest fan. And then Jeff got a whole bunch of media because he had been, you know, working construction sites for 2 years. And the Eagles called him and asked him to come back and, you know, for the Super Bowl, just for the Super Bowl. So Jeff was getting a lot of media. You know, he's being interviewed on network television, Good Morning America. I think the Today Show, everybody had him on TV. And nobody was a bigger fan than Chad Lewis. And here, you know, he was the guy that came to replace Chad. It just says something about who he is. And, you know, Chad is always so happy for other successes. And, you know, it doesn't ever think much about his. He's not full of himself, and he's not impressed by what he does or who he is and what he's done. You know, but he's a unique human being.
The Eagles lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl 24-21, and after his foot healed, Lewis played one more season before he retired in 2005.
Well, I think every player has an internal clock, and my clock had told me that I was ready to finish playing. I didn't want to get another serious injury. I wanted to finish healthy so that I could play with my kids and golf, ride bikes, hike, do everything that I enjoyed doing. And so even though I could have squeezed out another year or two, it was the right time for me to retire.
Vice Sakahima connected with Lewis on many levels. They both played for BYU and had NFL careers with the Eagles. As a sports anchor for NBC 10, Sakahima covered the Eagles and Lewis, and Vice served as the bishop of Chad's LDS ward in Philadelphia.
A component of our relationship that was different too is that, you know, his ecclesiastic leader had played in the NFL. You know, that doesn't always happen. You don't, you know, most NFL guys, or if you're Major League Baseball or you're playing the NBA, you don't walk in and the person who's the head of your congregation, you know, was a former player. And so he understands everything that you're doing and what you've done. So, yeah, that was really, you know, wonderful for us.
The two men developed a strong bond of friendship based on mutual respect and trust. But as Sakahima, the TV sports anchor, found, sometimes you can't fully trust the playful Chad Lewis.
My camera crew went to the practice facility. Somebody asked Chad what he's thankful for, and he said, "I'm thankful that I speak Mandarin Chinese." And somebody said, "Can we hear it?" So Chad launches into Mandarin Chinese, and everybody's rolling it. This is gold.
现在看你建起码的施工就要出现有人救你的中间，所以你们着手为神服的人们啊，你们必须尽心尽能尽力尽力侍奉他。
I said, did anybody find out what he said? No, we didn't think to. We were in a hurry to get out. I said, okay, well, you know, it's Chad Lewis. I know he wasn't cursing. We run the bit with an explanation that Chad speaks Mandarin Chinese. The 6 o'clock news ends and I go home for dinner. And when I come back to do the 11 o'clock news, I look on my phone and the little light is blinking. So messages. I click on it. Typically I would have maybe 5 or 10 messages. I had like 32 messages that day. So I start listening. And one call after another is from, there's an Asian branch in South Philadelphia that meets there. And one call after another is from the members of that branch. And they're telling me things like this. Brother Sakahima, we just heard Chad Lewis. He was reciting scripture. Next repeat. Mr. Sakahima, this is so-and-so from the Asian branch in South Philly. We just heard Chad reciting the 4th section of the Doctrine and Covenants. So I called Chad immediately. I said, Chad, what did you say when when they asked you to speak some Chinese, he goes, oh, I recited the 4th section of the Doctrine and Covenants because it was the first thing that came to mind. We used to have to memorize it when we arrived in the mission field.
In addition to his play on the field, Lewis also worked as an ambassador for the NFL in China.
They asked me if I wanted to go to Taiwan and do some goodwill tour stuff, and I said, heck yes, let's go. So the first trip was to Taiwan, Thailand, and Singapore, doing football stuff, interviews, school visits, everything for a 10-day jam-packed action tour. It was really, really fun. And it was the first time I got to really speak Chinese again since my mission. And then that opened the door where the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, asked me if I wanted to join him on his trip to China, which of course I wanted to. So we went to China and had an incredible time visiting the people, speaking with NFL sponsors, government officials.
As a former NFL player, Lewis found a lot of opportunities to use his money and fame to help others. He hiked to the top of Africa's Mount Kilimanjaro to bring attention to the Wounded Warrior Project. He posted this video of the trip on YouTube.
Believe on 3. 1, 2, 3, believe!
Here we were thrown together for 12 days to hike this mountain, and we had to come together as a team. We had to push each other, we had to help each other, we supported each other. We did something that none of us will ever forget.
Lewis also became involved in charity work as he hosted a charity golf tournament to support cystic fibrosis and also worked with Native American Services to help Native American youth raise money to go to college.
I met Chad at one of his golf tournaments. It brings emotion to me because honestly it was so much him. That's what he did. He just was always helping everybody else. So I watched him for the first time engage a group of young kids with their parents who struggled to breathe because of cystic fibrosis. And I thought, wow, I will always play in this golf tournament. And I pretty much played in it every year since.
BYU inducted him into its Hall of Fame in 2007, and he accepted a job as an assistant athletic director at BYU in 2010.
His main duty is to meet with our donors and friends of the program and be able to ask them if they would be willing to contribute and support BYU athletics. I think our donors really enjoy being around him. People like to be in his presence, and that's what he does. But so much more than just being a fundraiser is he's a friend-raiser.
I work full-time at BYU. I'm the director of the fundraising team for the athletic department. I'm also the sport administrator for swimming and diving. My job now is full-time BYU, full-time athletics. I get to work with all the coaches, the student athletes. I get to work with unbelievable donors here in this area who love BYU. Most of them are members of the LDS Church. They feel like participating and donating BYU is important to them, and I feel the same way. So I feel like I've got the coolest job in the world.
We are here to build the program, to make it great. That is our goal. We need to raise funds, keep it alive. We need to compete.
Even more than his community service, Lewis remains committed to his home life. Michelle admits being an NFL wife wasn't always easy, but that she wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
I wouldn't trade any of that for the world, and it was probably just through prayer that I just knew it was the right thing for me, and I never regretted it.
Emily Lewis is the oldest of Chad and Michelle's 7 children.
Being the oldest daughter of Chad has been incredible and great. It's all I've ever known. It has come with it its own pressures and expectations, not even that he's put on me. I mean, he wants me to be great, but just from outside people wanting to be like my dad. And that's actually just has turned into a blessing, and I've loved that. And he's everything I hope to be, and I hope to be as patient with people and as kind to people as he is, and I really admire that.
She currently plays volleyball, just like her mom did here at BYU. And just like her mom, she married a BYU tight end, Matt Bushman.
I didn't really ever want to tell him, like, hey, I'm going on a date with your daughter, because I didn't want to like mess up a relationship with like a mentor that I could possibly have for my career. So then later on during the baseball season, towards the end, in like April, end of April, we officially started hanging out more and started dating. So at that moment I had to tell Chad, I was like, hey, like, I'm having a lot of fun going on dates with your daughter. I was super happy that I was able to meet an awesome girl, but also still have that relationship of a mentor to help me throughout my career here at BYU.
Emily's personality is more like Chad's. She's very social. She's really an extrovert. She's majoring in public relations. She loves to just be out there. And Matt is maybe a little more reserved and very solid, but just a little quieter. And I oftentimes think, well, that's kind of how I am. So when people say, Emily, you're dating your dad, and they're laughing, she's like, no, actually, I'm dating my mom.
A big part of the Lewis household is their adherence to LDS beliefs. They read scriptures, they attend church every Sunday, and they try to live a Christ-centered life.
It's him. He's powerful in his influence, he's powerful in his testimony, he's powerful in his penetration skills of people and not just breaking through the secondary. He's powerful in his connection to Michelle and the kids. He's powerfully effective as a father. And above all, I think he's recognized for his power in lifting and strengthening people that are maybe struggling a little bit.
People have asked me a million times what it's like to be a member of the LDS Church and play in the NFL at the same time. It's a challenge. The atmosphere in the NFL, it's not like being in zone conference as a missionary. It's very different. And so I would say the most important thing I had was solid family all around me. My wife, my kids, my parents, my brothers. And I think if you know who you are going in, you have a shot to be successful. If those NFL players that don't know who they are going in, they're going to get chewed up and spit out because it's a man's world and it's very tough. So I think knowing who I was, knowing what I cared about the most, made it possible for me to stand up for what I believed in and who I was and to be successful in that environment.
When you look at Chad's path throughout his sports career and life, he faced lots of adversity and bumps along the way that could have derailed him. But Lewis learned that through adversity, you find greatness.
I hope that you know that you were an inspiration to me.
Not only to here at BYU, but also to the world. Wherever he goes, man, people love Chad Lewis.
Yeah, you know what, Chad? You owe me some money. No, I'm just kidding.
And even more than what Chad was as a football player and the great rapport and the great success we had together on the field was the person that Chad was.
You couldn't ask a quarterback to have anyone better than a guy like you.
He loved the game. He was passionate about playing the game. He was very coachable, and he understood what it meant to be a good teammate.
Hey, Chad, I'm so thrilled to be able to do this with you, buddy, okay? Make sure we still have to compare our notes with all our kids every now and then.
He was always enthusiastic, and he was always going full speed, and that's half the battle.
We're going to march right into old age doing the same stuff, and unfortunately you're tracking me. I'm sorry to say. I saw a little gray hair. That was awesome. It made me feel really good.
It's been an honor being his friend.
It's a fun-loving group. I mean, if you're having a bad day, go spend time with the Lewis family, and you're not going to have a bad day.
His overall character was superior to most of the people you meet in coaching.
He's like my kid brother. Although he's 6'6", I'm 5'8".
Every chance we have with Chad, we will become better people or we'll have a better day.
I always say about Chad, he's not about building a resume, he's about building a eulogy. I mean, honestly, his qualities are so amazing.
He has a strong yearning to change the world, and he thinks that you can do it one day at a time.
I just want to express more of my thankfulness for being a younger brother where he's always been my best friend.
We got the whole scoop on Chad now, so well, we've got it all. All the secrets are out, and I think the world of him. So, one of my all-time favorite guys.
Dad, I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for the path that you've made for our family and the example that you've always set, and I hope to be just like you. I love you.